11th Amendment, passed by Congress March 4th, 1794, ratified February 7th, 1795. Note: Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution was modified by Amendment 11. The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of any other state or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state.
Now, I did some research. This was passed because of a case called Grissom versus Georgia, I think.
Mm-hmm. It is one of a handful of, to me, still real problems with the judicial. It's really hard to sue a state or the federal government. Harder than it should be. You know, we know someone who is currently dealing with VA issues, and you can't sue because the government won't let you. Even though in his case it's blatant malpractice. You know, paperwork got just thrown away rather than filed. But there's nothing he could do about it because it's a government agency.
I think in this case, the guy won, the state lost, I think, if I remember correctly. Then the decision was like, we should have changed this, and they did.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's part of the elitism that is still an unfortunate problem with the Constitution. You know, we don't like to remember this in this country. The Constitution was written by a bunch of guys who were the higher classes in their states. They were, you know, America doesn't have nobility, but if they did, it would have been those guys. And so, yeah, so the case was Chisholm v. Georgia. And it was the case of somebody who was providing supplies for the Continental Army in 1777 and never got paid by the state of Georgia. And the executor of his estate, after he died, sued Georgia, which, you know, reasonable. And they said that instead he should sue the people who had withdrawn the funds that were supposed to go to the guy. He was like, no, the state of Georgia was supposed to pay me. And he sued. And the governor argued that you can't sue Georgia.
Yeah, they even show up for the case.
Yeah.
It's funny because in a more recent trial, when Alex Jones was not showed up for his case, it made him lose the case.
Yeah, well, the thing is it was initially thrown out for lack of jurisdiction, and then he sued under the Supreme Court, which was the original, you know, jurisdiction for a case where you sued a state. The court heard his arguments and held for the plaintiff. Said, look, you know, the Constitution says we have the right to hear this case. Its original jurisdiction to the Supreme Court. Nothing says it's only when the state is suing someone else. So when you're suing the state, it goes to the Supreme Court.
The states were like, we gotta fix that.
Yeah. There was one dissenting opinion. At the time, there were 5 justices on the court. The number of justices on the court is not, as you may have noticed, set by the Constitution. It is set by federal law, and the number has changed over the years. Currently, the citizens of a state can only sue a state if the state agrees to be sued, which, in my opinion, is some hot garbage, or if the Congress gives you permission, essentially. And this is nonsense. This should not be, you know, because there are a lot of cases I can think of where states deserve to be sued.
Yeah. is also back in the day when states had more power than they do now. I think it's still all about the state power, almighty state power.
Well, it's also, I think it stems in part from an idea that if citizens are allowed to sue the states, then they will do so for all sorts of ridiculous and foolish reasons because we can't trust the people. And while I am not in a particularly trusting the people mood these days, it's still wrong.
Yeah.
Judges are perfectly capable of throwing out frivolous lawsuits. It's happened before and it'll happen again. Most of the cases of frivolous lawsuits you hear, either you have not been given all the details or the case got thrown out.
Yeah. It does something here. It says, by citizen of another state or a foreign state. That means you can sue your own state. You can't sue state you don't live in or something.
Well, yeah, this was specifically, you can't sue. I wouldn't be able to sue Oregon.
But you can sue Washington?
In theory.
Okay. So it's not completely crazy.
It's not completely crazy, but it's still, in practice, is generally held to be you have a really hard time suing your own state. And of course, if the state of Washington were in some way like harming people from Vancouver, the people of Vancouver couldn't sue the state of Washington. It's generally known that if you have California license plates, you need to be extra careful driving in Washington and Oregon, because the cops are much more likely to pull you over if you have California plates. And it would be hard for the state of or citizens of the state of California to do anything about that. Or if it turned out that the state of Washington was systematically pulling over people with British Columbia plates for random checks, there's nothing that the citizens of British Columbia could do about that because they are citizens or subjects of a foreign state.
It's the pig wars all over again.
It's the pig wars all over again, yeah. The guy in the pig war couldn't have sued Washington. I mean, Washington wasn't a state at the time, it was Oregon Territory. But even if it were Washington State, he wouldn't have been able to sue Washington State. So, I understand where they're coming from. I just think it's wrong. It's this idea that states are above such things, and I don't believe they are.
Yeah. It's like today where corporations are people. Back then, states were people.
States are better than people.
It's like corporations are better than people nowadays.
I will believe that a corporation is a person when I see one convicted of murder. I understand the purpose of this amendment. I don't like it.
And it passed in less than a year.
Yeah.
They were like, see, even before the turn of the century, this is like, it's like, we gotta get this done. And they did. States are like,
it passed in the days where the Congress was still very much wealthy landowners.
Yeah. So, but also I think it's also like at this point, like maybe 13, 12, 13, 14, maybe 15 states at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was easier to pass things anyway, but also, this was still, I freely admit that most of the people in Congress today are wealthy landowners. But there are a few who aren't, and also the general public. First off, the voting public is much broader now than it was, 225 years ago, because there are no requirements that you have to be a landowner. There are no requirements that you have to be white. There are no requirements that you have to be male. There are just more, and of course, you can vote 3 years younger. There are more people allowed to vote now as a percentage of the population than there were in 1794. And I think it would be much, much harder to get this through Because I think more people would say, wait a minute, well, what if I am genuinely wronged by another state? And I think there'd be a lot more protest against this sort of thing if they tried it today.
And that's what I tried it back then. But probably not, but
Yes, well.
they knew the future. Yeah.
Christ, if they knew the future, they'd have written the Second Amendment better.
So, anything else to go over this?
Nope, that's it.
Next, my return will be going to a very, very long one.
Yeah, well.